In today's biased news, multipolarity is on the rise, France is on fire, and China leads the way toward a sustainable future. As Western political and economic hegemony wanes, rival structures are emerging in the beginning of a new geopolitical multipolarity. The latest development happened just this week, as Ethiopia, Africa's second most populous nation, as well as a rapidly growing economy, requested to join BRICS. BRICS was originally an informal name for the national economies set to become dominant by 2050, which include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Since then, a more established geopolitical bloc has formed with collaborative summits, mutual development banks, and increased economic collaboration. The Ethiopian Foreign Ministry spokesman said, "We expect BRICS will give us a positive response to the request we have made." This follows the requests of other countries, from Argentina to Egypt to Iran, to officially join the institution. China has stated formal support for Argentina's bid, with the Foreign Ministry stating, quote, "Argentina's accession would strengthen and broaden its voice in defense of the interest of the developing world." The next planned summit will take place in South Africa later this year, with more countries expected to make requests for entry. Currently, the BRICS countries account for more than 40% of the world's population and about 26% of the global economy. Although a bloc emerging as a market alternative to the West is geopolitically beneficial to breaking the dominance of Western capital, it's important to remember that as long as no genuine attempts are made at moving beyond capitalism, the world will remain at the mercy of relentless boom and bust cycles, crises of overproduction, and environmental destruction for short-term profits. Nonetheless, the growth of BRICS is a positive development which may allow fledgling socialist powers the necessary breathing room for diplomatic and trade opportunities. Once again, the socialist must carry the burden of being right all the time. A supposed Chinese spy balloon that flew over the United States earlier this year before being shot down did not collect information as it went across the country, according to an admission by the Pentagon on Thursday. The timing of this statement is convenient for the State Department, as there's no more anti-China sensationalism to pull out of the now-dead story. In the UK, according to official figures from the Office of National Statistics, Britain's economy had a lackluster start to 2023, with quarterly GDP growth of just 0.1%. The slow growth was attributed to inflation, which eroded household disposable income. Despite the easing of inflation, economists predict that higher interest rates will continue to pose challenges for the economy, maintaining the pain caused by reduced purchasing power. Continuing with economic news, oil prices rose towards $75 a barrel on Friday, but are on course for an unprecedented fourth consecutive quarter of losses amid concerns over sluggish global economic activity and fuel demand. The Russian ruble slumped to a more than 15-month low against the dollar and euro on Friday, weighed down by domestic political concerns after an aborted armed mutiny. And in Pakistan, the long-awaited and hotly debated aggressive IMF loan has just been signed. Pakistan's political establishment made a difficult choice between potential bankruptcy and a $3 billion debt issued by the IMF, one of the most reviled and exploitative institutions in the world. French President Emmanuel Macron held a second crisis meeting with his cabinet after the most destructive night of nationwide rioting over the fatal shooting of a teenager. Rioters clashed with police in multiple cities, leading to hundreds of injuries, arrests, and widespread destruction of buildings and vehicles. The unrest was triggered by the shooting death of a 17-year-old of Algerian and Moroccan descent during a traffic stop in a Paris suburb. The violence then quickly spread to other cities. The incident has brought attention to long-standing accusations of police violence and systemic racism in France's major cities. The killer officer has been placed under formal investigation for voluntary homicide. The situation has prompted concern from other governments, with the US Embassy and UK authorities warning their people to exercise caution while in France. The head of Russia's Duma Defense Committee has announced that Wagner mercenaries will no longer fight in Ukraine, as they refuse to sign contracts which would have brought them under the wing of Russia's defense ministry. This decision comes after Prigozhin staged a short-lived mutiny against Moscow, resulting in a deal exiling him and his forces to Belarus. As a consequence of not signing the contract, the Wagner Group will no longer receive state funding. Satellite images show new developments in a military base in Belarus, indicating a possible new base of operations for the PMC, with Prigozhin arriving in Belarus following an invitation from President Lukashenko. After the aborted mutiny, President Putin allowed the Wagner mercenaries to join the Russian military, move to Belarus, or quit, accusing the group of attempting to trigger a civil war. And to end with some positive news, China is set to surpass its green energy targets well ahead of schedule, according to analysis by Global Energy Monitor. The country is on track to double its capacity and generate 1,200 gigawatts from wind and solar energy by 2025, 5 years earlier than its 2030 commitment made by President Xi Jinping. Currently, China's installed solar capacity has reached 228 gigawatts, equivalent to more than 100 coal-fired power plants, and its wind capacity has doubled to 310 gigawatts since 2017. This remarkable surge in renewable energy has led experts to predict that China may hit peak emissions as early as next year, providing a shining example of what a sustainable future could look like. That's all for today. We'll be back on Monday with more news. If you'd like to see episodes with more in-depth analysis, consider supporting the show on Patreon so we can grow and expand.